I'm going to just now touch on a little bit of the future of what can we expect and what have we looked at recently in terms of advancing our care of our acne patients. So we're going to look at a few things that are on the future or some things that are fairly new. The first thing that's kind of interesting is, can you imagine treating acne once a week? This was a study that we conducted looking at a topical mask that's developed from a sponge. The sponge is taken and it's ground down and it's mixed, and patients apply this medication once a week in moderate to severe acne. And you might say, oh, this is ridiculous. I mean, honestly, it's a sponge. What is it really going to do? Yet what we found was this drug seemed to work, and it seemed to work quite well in decreasing the inflammatory and the comedonal lesions of acne. And when you look at month 3, 44% of patients got to clear or almost clear over time. That's not bad for giving patients one thing to do once a week. Some patients had a little bit of redness or a little bit of irritation, but overall this was well tolerated. We actually completed the phase 3 studies with this same treatment once a week, and believe it or not, phase 2 mirrored what we saw in phase 3, and we had a highly statistically significant improvement in getting patients to clear or almost clear. About 30% of them was just using this once a week as their only acne treatment. So what else? Let's think outside the box. What else can we do for acne? Let's think of things that we haven't thought of before. When we look at the pro-inflammatory cytokines that are involved with acne, we know that interleukin-36 is a pro-inflammatory cytokine that's associated with acne, and interleukin-38 tends to be an anti-inflammatory cytokine. And this was a study that looked at the amount of these cytokines that are developed in acne patients versus the control group. And we see that this pro-inflammatory cytokine, IL-36, is elevated in acne, and the one that's anti-inflammatory is decreased in acne. And when we look at mild, moderate, and severe patients, we see there's a dose-response relationship between IL-36. It's higher and higher as we get to more severe acne patients. So if we think outside the box, and we have a pro-inflammatory cytokine that's highly related to acne and is highly related to even more severe acne, can we block this cytokine and maybe have a treatment for acne? Can we develop a biologic agent for the treatment of acne? We have them for psoriasis, we have them for atopic dermatitis, we have them for HS. What about acne? So I was involved in this study that looked at a biologic agent that blocked the receptor for IL-36. So if we block the receptor for IL-36, that means we shouldn't get the pro-inflammatory inflammation that occurs when IL-36 binds to its receptor. It's a great idea. So we were involved in this study. And you know what we found? We looked at a high dose of the biologic agent, we looked at a low dose of the biologic agent, and we looked at the placebo. The placebo had the highest efficacy of any of the groups. And I show you this to reinforce the fact that there are so many great ideas, but they don't always work. And that's why we spend so much money on research and development, because when you think about all the drugs that start out, and then which ones make it all the way through and actually work and get to approval, less than 10%, about 7%. So a lot of money is spent in research and development for great ideas. The ones that do make it, it's rare. It's rare, but we have to continue the research and development. Another option for acne is a laser therapy that targets the 1726 nanometer. And this makes sense because this is where we can selectively target the sebum and not the water in the skin. And when we look at the effect of this laser on the sebocyte, we see that this can very effectively damage the sebocyte while having minimal effect on the surrounding skin. So I was involved in these clinical trials where I did not perform it, but I evaluated all the photographs from all the patients. And there was an initial study that was done that looked at 3 treatments that were about every month. And they found that over time, this seemed to be a slow result, but a long-lasting result. And this did go forward with a much larger study, where here we looked at 104 patients of all different skin types. And we found after they were given 3 of these laser treatments, about 80% of them had at least a 50% improvement 3 months after the last treatment, and that number went up to almost 90% 6 months after the last treatment. So this isn't something to see an instantaneous result. But say somebody wants to get better, but they don't have a lot of time or energy to devote to their acne treatments, this is something that they could potentially do for a more long-lasting effect. And here's an example of patients. It's not perfect, but it's certainly a nice improvement, especially in the inflammatory lesions. And then I just want to end with the idea of an acne vaccine. Sounds like science fiction. Could it be possible that we could give adolescents, especially those who are prone to potentially get bad acne, could we give you a vaccine and maybe minimize the development of acne? Maybe you get less severe acne. Maybe we wouldn't get any acne at all. And this is something that's currently being developed. It's not yet in clinical trials late stage. It's just an early stage where they're looking at developing a vaccine to the surface of Cutibacterium acnes. And they're trying to target this particular bacteria using an mRNA vaccine. And the benefit of using an mRNA vaccine is there's no live pathogens. It seems to be quite safe. It does mount a good immune response, and the manufacturing of a vaccine like this is actually not that difficult to do. So I think this is something that's exciting. I think if this does turn out to hold true, that it has some effect, we might end up vaccinating all of our adolescents. It might be part of their vaccination scheduling sometime in the future. So I want to thank you for your time, and I think we're going to take questions.